This presentation is intended to help you find credible sources as you write your essay. When you're using news articles as research sources for an academic paper, it's important to evaluate each one thoroughly to make sure that you're using articles that meet academic rigor. What does that mean? It just means that not all sources are created equal. Some of the news sites or even places where we get our news or information in our spare time might not necessarily be appropriate for a college-level assignment. The articles you want to be using should be fact-based and answer the who, what, where, when, why, and how of an event or news story. The following tabs will summarize how to apply the CRAP test, a common source evaluation tool to determine the credibility of news sources. So as you find sources online, ask yourself, is this crap? The C stands for currency. When you're using a news article as a source, considering the publication date is extremely important. News articles are primary sources written as events unfold, so information can change over time as we learn more. Using the most up-to-date article is crucial. Articles found through search engines or social media might even be out of date, even if they're shared recently or show up at the top of your search results. So as you consider the currency of your source, you can ask yourself a few questions. First, is this a recent article? Has the article been updated? Are there any new developments on my topic since this article was published? And are the author's references current? The R in CRAP stands for relevance. Research is not just about finding sources, it's about finding the best sources that talk about your topic thoroughly. You should expect to do multiple searches in multiple databases or websites to find more articles than you need. From there, you can read through each article and pick and choose the sources you actually use that have the most helpful research within them. So, as you consider the relevance of your source, ask yourself these questions. Does the information from this article help prove or disprove my thesis? Who's the intended audience? Is the source too juvenile or too scholarly? For example, if your topic is related to healthcare, we might not want to go to a medical database because those are articles written by doctors or medical professionals for medical professionals. Sometimes that information can be very complicated and difficult to understand. Did you read past the headline and introduction of the article? This is usually just a sneak peek to let you know if you want to continue reading the article. So the information that you'll be citing will be usually found deeper within the article. And then most of all, ask, is this the best article on my topic? Am I just using one sentence from this article? Or is the entire thing very close to my topic and helpful? Next, and possibly most important for any kind of assignment, is to consider the authority of your source. You want to make sure that the author has some kind of expertise or exposure to your topic. This can be difficult to discern with news sources because the authors usually aren't subject experts, but journalists. Many online news sites can hire content experts, but that's unlikely when it comes to a newspaper. When you consider authority with news sources, you should also evaluate the media source itself, so the newspaper or magazine, and its credibility as well. So what exactly does expertise mean? This is going to depend a little bit on your topic, but in general, you can consider the author's background. Do they have an advanced degree related to your topic? Do they teach your topic? Maybe they work in the field of your topic you're researching? Is the author a journalist? If so, are they reporting cited facts, or is the article conjecture? And finally, does the author have some kind of first-hand experience of an event or issue? And is that expertise? So you may find this with articles that are outside of professional authors or journalists, and you really have to ask yourself, does one person's experience encapsulate the entire topic. And with that said, as you consider the authority of your source, ask yourself a few of these questions. First, who is the author? Then, what are their credentials? Is there anything on the website or the news article that hints who they are or what kind of background they have? You want to make sure that person has some kind of expertise. Has the author written other articles on the same or similar topics? This may hint that even if they're a journalist and not a professional, that perhaps they have some kind of background experience in that specific topic. Think about the domain or sponsor of the website. Is it a real legitimate news organization? Is the source a blog for breaking news or a traditional news source? Blogs for breaking news can be helpful because they're often the first place that you'll find information about an evolving topic, but we also know that that's not necessarily the full spirit of the topic because we don't often know all the details immediately. And in today's day and age, you also want to make sure that you're not on a satirical news site, one that creates news stories for entertainment purposes. The second A revolves around accuracy. Just as you have to make sure that you're using truthful and credible information in your essays, your author should be doing the same thing in their article. It may not always be written by a content expert, so you have to ensure that the author is consulting reliable resources in order to write reliable articles. You may find sources presented in a variety of ways. It could be an interview with an expert or a witness. It could be statistical data. It could even be summaries of scholarly research studies. So as you consider accuracy in your source, first, make sure that the author is providing some other kind of sources or citations. If there are citations, do they link to other credible sources? As you look at all of the sources you found on your topic, does the content kind of verify itself among all of those different sources? Of course, each article you use is not going to have identical information, but making sure that some basic facts match up is a good hint that your article is research-based and reliable. And you also want to ask yourself, does the author's tone seem unbiased? So being biased doesn't necessarily mean that we are lying or creating false information, but it does affect the kind of information that we'll report. The last element of CRAP is the purpose. Once we figure out who the author is, we really want to think about why have they created this information. Reliable news sources report on facts with the purpose of informing readers. You want to look out for articles or sites that are trying to sell you something, be persuasive, or entertain you. Remember, not all articles on a news site or in a newspaper are going to be fact-based. There are editorials, opinion pieces, advertisements, so you're really looking for fact-based articles. Purpose really deals with bias. So it's important to understand bias a little bit when you're trying to figure out what the author's purpose is. One of the most difficult aspects is trying to figure out what kind of biases the author might have. When the author inserts their personal beliefs or opinions and those interfere with their ability to report impartial facts, that is when an author has some bias. Beyond individual author bias, news companies themselves can also be politically, religiously, culturally, or racially biased. Even your own personal bias can interfere in researching responsibly. We call that confirmation bias. That occurs when we interpret sources or seek out sources that align with our beliefs. So if you have a thesis based around, let's say, the death penalty, and you think that it is a good thing, you want to just search and find all the sources you can. The goal is not to solely find sources that say it's a good thing. You want to find a wide variety. You can see it here on the page. There's a media bias chart. You can see at the top in the green box, we want to use news sources that do original fact reporting and less analysis, persuasive, or just completely made up information here on the bottom. And you can see that that applies to both political parties. So you can see at the top here we have places like the AP, Reuters, NPR, C-SPAN, NBC, ABC, CBS News, PBS, etc. So do you normally get your online news from a biased source? This may be a hint that that's not going to be academically strong enough to use in your assignment. So as you're thinking of the purpose, here's a few questions to consider. Why would the author create this information? Importantly, do they have anything to gain from sharing this information? Are they making money off of it? Are they going to persuade you? Look at the organization as a whole. This could be the website or the news organization. Do they have any ties that might influence the facts that they report? Is the article itself fact-based, or is the author offering an analysis? Think about the author's tone. Does it seem biased? Are they just reporting impartial facts? And a good hint to bias can be if the article provokes an emotional response from you, either way, positive or negative. Now, since you are creating a persuasive article, essay, you may want to find some biased information, but it's important to find information from both sides if your information is biased in any way, because you also need to provide a counter-argument. So where can you find credible news sources? We already discussed some of the online news sites when looking at the media bias chart. You have NPR, National Public Radio, Reuters, Associated Press, or C-SPAN. But you also have access to a lot of news sources through the library databases. These are all free. So, for example, if you went to the Orlando Sentinel website, they would want you to pay for access to read the articles. However, you have free access through the library databases. We also have America's News, which is newspapers all over the United States, a database called Florida Newspapers, which limits you just to newspapers in Florida, the Orlando Sentinel, as I mentioned, as well as the New York Times Historic and Current.